What does it truly mean to turn conflict into redemption? Welcome back to our series on biblical responses to offense. Today, we are tackling a transformative topic, restoring the offender. Guided by Matthew 18:15 through 17, we'll unpack how to approach reconciliation with Christ-centered wisdom, transforming wounds into opportunities for grace. Matthew 18:15 says, "Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone." Conflict is inevitable, but not every wrong demands our intervention. The Bible specifies action only when we are personally wronged. So what are some dangers of unresolved conflict? Ignoring conflict is risky. Proverbs 18:19 warns, "A brother offended is harder to be won than a strong city, and their contentions are like the bars of a castle." Unresolved conflict builds walls, but Christ tears them down. Now, who should act? Matthew 7:3. "And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye?" Now, this gives a picture of someone trying to help someone else by pointing out something. And the analogy given is someone with a beam in their eye trying to help someone else with a mote in their eye. Now, let's imagine that I have a toothpick in my eye, and I'm trying to help somebody else who has a speck of sand in their eye. That would seem a little hypocritical, wouldn't it? It would make more sense for me to get help to remove the toothpick out of my eye so I could see clearly. Then I could probably help someone with a grain of sand in their eye. What I'm trying to say is, before confronting anyone, we must confront ourselves. Why should one restore? Verse 15 of Matthew 18 says, "If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother." The goal isn't to win or shame. It is to reclaim a relationship. Matthew 18 actually gives a roadmap or a step-by-step blueprint for restoration. Step 1, private conversations, as mentioned in verse 15. "Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother." This is where most conflicts are resolved, privately, preserving dignity. But here's the key. One needs to approach with humility, not accusation. We could say, "I value our relationship. Can we talk?" Now, the next step is to bring spiritual support. So if you have an issue one-on-one and you try to resolve it one-on-one and it doesn't work out, the offender doesn't recognize their offense, the next step is to bring spiritual support. Verse 16 of Matthew 18 tells, "But if he will not hear thee," so you tried the first step, one-on-one, it didn't work, he didn't hear, "then take with thee one or two more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established." Now, this isn't about ganging up. It's about accountability. Invite a mature believer who knows both parties. And what would be their role? To listen, pray, and guide toward truth. Now, if you take the first step and it's not resolved, and remember the first step was just one-on-one, somebody offended you, one-on-one, you try to speak to them to resolve it and to gain that relationship. If that doesn't work, take 2 or 3 witnesses with the idea of just hoping that this person would see their wrong, be guided toward the truth, and the relationship be restored. If at step 2 they still would not hear, then and only then should the church be involved. At times we don't do it the correct way. First time there's offense, we fly straight to the pastor and try to tell the pastor this and this. Now, if we were to follow the scripture, first of all, the pastor and the church would not be involved until that time, so they could continue doing what they need to be doing. And me and you could resolve our differences much sooner, much better. But step 3 comes in when step 1 and step 2 doesn't work. Verse 17 and 18, Matthew 18 says, "And if he shall neglect to hear thee, tell it unto the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a publican. Verily I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever ye shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." This is the last resort. Not to shame, but to protect the church's unity. But what if they still refuse? Jesus acknowledges this pain. Yet we are still called to love. "Pray for them which despitefully use you," was a reference he gave in Matthew 5:44. Restoration isn't easy. It demands courage, humility, and obedience. Here's your challenge for this week. Ask God, is there a relationship I've avoided restoring? Write down one step from Matthew 18 you'll take. Then do it. Let's be people who bridge divides, not burn them. After all, isn't that the gospel in action? Thank you for tuning in. Go forth as peacemakers armed with grace. Until next time, remember, love repairs what sin unravels.